The US economy is facing some serious headwinds, and signs are mounting that a recession could be on the horizon. Recently, Wall Street took a sharp dive, marking one of its worst trading days since 2022, driven by growing concerns over President Donald Trump's trade policies. While Porras has been hesitant to directly predict a recession, analysts are pointing to several key factors that suggest that the world's largest economy may be slowing down. Let's break down the top 5 reasons why the US might be headed for a recession this year. One of the main drivers of the economic concern right now is the escalating trade war between the United States and several key nations, including China, Canada, and Mexico. During his first term, President Trump often talked tough on tariffs but didn't always follow through. Now those tariffs are in place and the Wall Street seems to be reacting with fear. The stock market is spooked by the uncertainty of the new reality, and bond yields are dropping, signaling investor concerns. This back and forth on tariffs is creating a lot of unpredictability, which is rarely good for economic stability. Typically, falling bond yields are a red flag for economic slowdown. In simple terms, when bond yields go down, it suggests that investors are moving their money into safer assets, which usually happens when they are uncertain about the future. The US's 10-year bond yield dipped recently, reflecting concerns over Trump's trade policies and the possibility of a recession. Lower bond yields signal a shift towards caution, and when investors get cautious, it's often a precursor to bigger economic challenges. While the US job market is still holding steady thanks to February's solid jobs report, there are other indicators that suggest that the economy might be slowing down. Consumer confidence has dipped, which means Americans aren't feeling optimistic about the economy. Business surveys have also shown companies holding back on capital investments, unsure of what's to come. On top of that, GDP growth in the fourth quarter of 2024 was strong, but early data for this year suggests that growth could slow down. The US economy has long operated with a trade deficit, meaning that the country imports more goods than it exports. Trump's tariffs were aimed at reducing this deficit, but experts say that it is easier said than done. The US relies on global trade, and because labor costs are high, it's often more cost-effective to buy certain goods from other countries rather than produce them domestically. Tariffs can only do so much to fix these structural issues. In fact, US companies, not foreign nations, end up paying the tariffs, which are passed on to consumers as higher prices. This creates inflationary pressure, which could lead to economic strain. Higher tariffs are likely to drive up costs for US consumers, leading to inflation. This could force the US Federal Reserve to change its course on interest rates. Currently, the Fed has been cutting rates to stimulate economic growth. But if inflation picks up due to tariffs and trade disruptions, the central bank may have to pause or reverse this trend. This could make borrowing more expensive, stifle consumer spending, and ultimately hurt economic growth. All signs that a recession could be closer than many expect. So what's next now for the US economy? While President Donald Trump's economic policies may have initially promised growth, the combination of trade tensions, inflation, and an uncertain global economy could be the perfect storm for a recession. Despite some optimistic talk from his administration, the reality is that high tariffs, a widening trade deficit, and slower growth may be too much for the United States economy to handle in the long run. Investors are already feeling jittery, and if these trends continue, a recession could be on the cards sooner rather than later. So, whether it's through increased inflation, higher consumer prices, or a slowdown in business investments, the road ahead looks uncertain for the United States. And while the POTUS's optimism about unleashing growth may sound hopeful, the signs are pointing to a more cautious economic future. The world will be watching closely to see how these tensions play out. For more updates on the so-called impending recession and Donald Trump's tariffs, stay tuned to the official YouTube channel of the Indian Express.